What is going on, everybody? This is NGS and welcome back to another video. This is actually going to be a follow-up to a video I recorded last week regarding Persona 5 getting pushed back into 2016. Now, I got a lot of interesting comments on that video regarding the delay, so much so that I was actually going to record a separate response to them. I realized, however, halfway through the recording that I was talking more about delays and how they affect the video game industry than I was Atlas and Persona 5. So that's where we've landed. Today, I'm going to be talking to you guys about video game industry delays, what they are, why they happen, and why we're seeing so many of them in 2015. Stay tuned. I'm more than 100% positive that I don't need to explain to you guys what a delay is. I'm sure you've had an upcoming movie, television series, comic book run that out of the blue just gets pushed back from its original release date to an unspecified date in the future. Sometimes it could be anywhere from 1 month to 2 months to 3 months to even an entire year away. And as people who tend to follow these things actively for these upcoming and anticipated things, it's kind of a big blow, especially when it happens so close to the release of the game. Why do these delays happen though? Well, they kind of vary depending on the medium. A delay that happens in the movie industry could be exponentially different than a delay that happens in, let's say, the comic book industry. But since we're talking about video games here, let's just keep it in that realm. Video game delays. Why do they happen? Well, like with the former, it can be a wide spectrum of things. For example, let's say you're a new IP coming out in the fall season. Why would a new IP get delayed? Well, when you have so many of the big blockbuster giants from annual franchises such as Call of Duty, Assassin's Creed, whatever the heck sports game is popular out right now, it's pretty obvious why a new IP would get delayed. That's one of the most common delays that we see. It affects both new IPs and existing franchises. However, there is something interesting that's been going on nowadays, especially in the fall season. We've had so many games from big blockbuster, well-known franchises get delayed into 2016. To name a few of them, Uncharted 4: A Thief's End, the next Legend of Zelda game, the next Star Fox game. God dang, Nintendo doesn't have any games coming out this year. And the upcoming Quantum Break from Remedy, all of those games have pretty big names attached to them working on them. So why in the world would they get delayed? Well, I'm pretty sure you've heard this term thrown around once or twice. Quality assurance. We want to make sure our game is quality tested. We want to make sure it releases in the best possible shape. Noble, right? It's pretty cool that these developers are taking their time to work on their games. So it's just quality purposes, right? Well, not necessarily. To talk about quality assurance when it comes to video game delays, we must first talk about video game development and comparing it from 2015 to 1986. So I'm pretty sure it's obvious that a lot of things have changed in the video game industry. Not just graphics, not just the things that we can do to make our games pretty and booby jiggle physics abundance. A lot of things have changed as far as development goes. Let's take a game like Zelda 2: Link's Awakening. When that game released, Nintendo had to be 110% sure that it was releasing in the best possible state it ever could. This meant a lot to developers back in the day. Why, you may ask? Because this was their legacy. This is what they were going to make their mark on in the industry. Because if they released this game in any shape, form, other than perfect, this would be a stain on their legacy. Why? Because that's the only time you're going to be able to release the game in that form. So if this game was released broken, with glitches and bugs abundance, this is going to be the memory that kids are going to have growing up and take with them into adulthood. It's a completely different story than games released nowadays, where you have something like The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. When that game released, sure, it was pretty awesome, it was pretty hype, it's a phenomenal game, but it was released broken. It had many bugs and it had many glitches. However, the difference between a game like Skyrim and a game like Zelda 2 is that Skyrim had the ability to be patched. Why? Because it had online capabilities. That's the biggest difference between game development from 1986 to game development in 2015. The ability to have high-speed internet. The ability to patch your games is one of the most useful features that we've seen done in game development. It gave developers a chance to go back and fix the games. Because let's be honest, we are all human at the end of the day. We are going to miss things, especially when it comes to game development. I don't think anyone's really, naive to this, but game development has changed exponentially. If you're looking at games nowadays to even games 5 years ago, the type of technology that's included in there, the advanced facial and motion capture going on, just such advanced things, and working with online connectivity, online multiplayer. Games are just so advanced, they're so grandiose that, yeah, of course, there's going to be more of a chance that your game might have bugs.
Do I have a bug?
And we accept that with the territory, because since these games are becoming so grandiose and they're affording us these experiences, we kind of welcome the idea that, sure, it may be a little bit broken in certain places. When you're pushing the boundaries of things for the very first time, of course you're going to trip along the way. But I think one thing we can all agree on as a whole is that we're seeing far more games released nowadays that are broken and unfinished as opposed to games that were released back in the day. Now, of course, I'm not going to generalize things 100% here. I do understand that games back in the day were released broken. That is definitely true. I'm not going to sit here and deny that. And there are games that are released nowadays that are completely functioning and don't even require a patch. So when it comes to these sort of things, you really have to take them on a case-by-case basis, which is what I don't see a lot of people doing. A lot of people are just so quick to say, games are better back in the day, games are better now than the older games, instead of just taking things as they are. And that's something we see happen a lot with the video game community. A lot of people in the video game community like to place the blame solely on the developers. I'm pretty sure you've heard, this developer is so lazy, this developer doesn't want to finish their game, this developer is just trying to make money off of you. You've heard that time in and time in and time out. Now, it's easy to just wrap everything up in a blanket and say, yes, all developers are lazy. But is that true? Is that true? Compare and contrast some of the things that were influencing game developers in 1986 to what's going on in 2015. There's so much that developers have to do nowadays to make sure that the game is up and running as opposed to a game released back in the day. Exponentially different. So different. Alrighty, so we've established that video game developers work extremely hard on their passion. What is it that causes their games to be released in a broken form? If their game is so broken, why don't they just spend the extra time to make sure it's fixed? Well, the answer to that question, ladies and gentlemen, I think should be very obvious. The answer to that is, it is a business. And what are people in the business for? To make money. And when you have money, you have investors. And when you have investors, you have shareholders and stockholders and every other type of holder out there. But more specifically, you have third-party publishers. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you have your EAs, your Activisions, and your Ubisofts, to name a few. Third-party publishers. What are these guys in the business for? To make money. Now, I want to make one thing crystal clear. Wanting to make money off of a video game is not a bad thing. I think we kind of over-romanticize the fact that, a developer or a publisher wants to make money off of their game and they see it as, evil and anti-corporation, anti-this, anti-that, when it's really not. You can release a game and want to make money on it provided you are honest, hardworking, loyal, and you're not trying to screw over the consumer. There's no problem with that whatsoever. A business is in a business to make money and we shouldn't really fault them for that. However, what we've been seeing more than anything is third-party publishers mistreating these developers, causing their games to release in these broken, buggy, unplayable forms. Now, why do they do that? Why are these publishers so hell-bent on making money? The answer to that is they want to satisfy their shareholders. They want to satisfy their stockholders. They want to make their bottom line. They want to make money. And when they see something is making them money, they're not going to stop doing that. Which is why we see franchises get run into the dirt, such as Guitar Hero. Which is why we see franchises release annually, like Assassin's Creed and Call of Duty. Because these things make money. And with more things making money, they're going to put more resources and time and developers on it. Which is why we haven't gotten sequels to some of your franchises. Because they take those developers off those lesser games and put them onto the big budget ones so they can keep up with their annual thing. So publishers are not really going to be too, I guess you could say, submissive to the idea of doing a video game delay if it's going to cost them money. Delaying a game, like I mentioned, is not just something that happens so quickly, especially if it's a big budget franchise. A really prime example of that is the latest Battlefield game, Battlefield Hardline. This game was supposed to release in fall of 2014, and when word got out that they were pushing it back to spring 2015, for me this was unheard of. Especially considering that Battlefield is a huge franchise. It is EA's answer to Call of Duty, whether we like it or not. So for them to push that game back all these months was just crazy for quality assurance purposes, no less. It's something that you're just not used to seeing, especially when you have giants like Ubisoft release games in broken forms like Assassin's Creed Unity and Watch Dogs. When you have these games out there, you always wonder yourself, why don't they delay these big budget games if they're not going to be, released in a playable form? The answer is they want to get the hype. They want to release it in the holiday season because they know the holiday season is when they're going to get their most amount of money out of it. I mentioned that these delays are not as simple as we think they are. It's not as simple as snapping your finger and saying, okay, you get your delay. Well, the reason why is because a lot of this stuff is pre-planned months in advance, ladies and gentlemen. For these big budget games coming out like Evolve, like Assassin's Creed, like Call of Duty, the marketing is sometimes set in stone when the game is announced. I'm pretty sure you guys recall when Evolve was released, they were already advertising DLC for the game. Batman Arkham Knight already advertising the season pass when they announced the game. They have all these things set in place, so to delay it months and months and months down the road, that causes a huge impact for them because not only do they have to shift a lot of things around to accommodate delay, but it also is going to cost them a lot of money in the long run. A lot of people don't realize how expensive a game is the more time goes on. So that's one of the reasons why these publishers may not be so hell-bent on delaying a game, because it's going to cost them more money in the long run. Now, you can play devil's advocate and say that, well, if the game is released in a better form, it's going to get critical acclaim and it could end up more money. Sure, we can make an argument for that. We can make an argument for everything here, but I'm just telling you guys like it is. So while delaying a game for quality assurance purposes may end up being good in the long run, there are instances where delays can signify overall bad things. First and foremost, if we're talking about delays that don't end up being worth it, take Ubisoft's Watch Dogs, for example. One of the most anticipated games of all time, one of my most anticipated games of all time, comes out broken and completely underwhelming, right? Batman Arkham Knight, PC version, to this day is still not playable. It's just mind-boggling that these games are coming out incomplete when they've had this amount of time of delay. It's just ridiculous. So the main important thing I want you guys to take away from this video is that video game delays, they have their positives, but they could also have their negatives because they could be signaling a sign that something's wrong with development. The development process, as you get longer and longer and longer, complications tend to arise because you're spending so much time on it, So I think the best thing that needs to be done is that there needs to be better management going all around. There needs to be more focus, need to be more transparent to make sure things are running as they should. You do need to have, some form of quality control at the top branch looking down onto developers. Because in some cases you have developers who can run wild and you don't even know what the heck they're doing with their games, such as Gearbox with Aliens Colonial Marines. You saw that they were siphoning funds from that into Borderlands. It's just insane. So there needs to be quality control, not just on the game development, but making sure the developers are in check. And that's not a bad thing. That isn't a bad thing. I think we all need to set goals for ourselves. We need to set, deadlines to achieve something. If we want to get something done and we want to make a move in our life, what's the first thing a lot of people tell you to do? They don't tell you to just think about it. They tell you to just do it. They tell you to, set a date out 2 years out, 3 years out, 4 years out. Like, what do you want to do? Oh, I want to compete in a natural bodybuilding show in, a year and a half. Okay, do that. So get your diet in check and go. What do you want to do? Oh, I want to, get my GPA up and, graduate from college. Okay, so you do that. If you set a goal for yourself, in the long run, it has you thinking about the best possible way for you to achieve said goal, which is, in some cases can work a lot better than having an arbitrary date of when you may or may not release it. For a lot of people, they just may go at a slow pace and kind of stumble along the way and be like, I'll do it tomorrow. It's very different than a person who has a date and they know they have to get this done so it can work as efficiently as possible. Like I said, though, you can play devil's advocate because sometimes that can cause unneeded stress, especially if it's in a small window of time where you got to crunch and you just end up going insane. In some cases, causes you to leave the video game industry. But you get my point on the matter. Video game delays as a whole, I'm all for them. However, you really have to take these things by a case-by-case basis and realize that it's not as simple and clear-cut as we like to think they are. Some cases, it could be used for quality assurance purposes, whereas in other cases, it could be a telltale sign that something is really wrong with the development of said game. Anyway, I want to hear your guys' thoughts about it. Comment down below and let me know what you think about it. I have a Facebook, a Twitter, and an Instagram. If y'all want to follow those, the links are down below in the description. I'm NGS signing out, and like always, I will catch you guys later. Peace.